Hey everybody, it's Jenny Clark with Solvability. We've got another edition of Freedom Friday, and this time it's my friend Michael Lejeune of RSM Federal. Michael, so good to have you on here. And I always like to start out by asking you to kind of tell people who you are, what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So if you don't know me, it's Mike Lejeune with RSM Federal. You likely know me from Game Changers for Government Contractors, the podcast. So a lot of people know me from that. A lot of people know me from little videos that I do every single day on LinkedIn. And then they also know me from some of the books we've written, whether it's Game Changers or Becoming a GovCon Expert or whatever book. A lot of people know me from the books as well. But our focus over at RSM is helping companies navigate and win contracts in the government space. And so we've helped our clients win about $13.5 billion over the last decade. And over the last year or two, we've brought on a lot of coaches to support us. Jenny is one of the coaches that supports our team, and we have a few others that support the team. And so we've got a really great team of experts that can help in just about every area you can imagine in government contracting. So
Well, the reason I'm so excited about being part of the RSM Federal Coaching Program is because when people call and ask me a question about federal contracting, if it's a financial question, I can track down the topic very quickly, answer their questions, but there's two problems with that. Number one is I could spend all day answering questions for free, and that's not really a great business model for me. The other is that many times when I talk to them, they think it's a financial question, but most of the time, it's really a sales and marketing question.
that's right.
And it's so important to me to talk to people in federal contracting about how do you get more work. And I'm not the expert on it. You
That's
and Josh
us.
Frank are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's us.
tell people a little bit about what your topic is today, and let's just roll right into it, Michael.
Sure. Yeah, the topic today is one that this is something I think a lot of people just gloss over in their business. And I want to talk about mapping your sales process because a lot of times, especially if you're brand new to owning a business, this is often the first time you've ever had a sales process. And it's often something you've just kind of haphazardly put together of, hey, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then this. And next thing you know, you have a process, but it's probably not very well defined. It's not very well explained. Your team may all be doing different steps and stages and different things like that. And the biggest challenge when you don't have a process mapped out like this is you don't know where the problems are. You don't have consistency. You don't know how to fix the problems. And then you wake up in a situation where you're like, hey, I don't know how to improve sales. And so when that happens for most companies, there's one method that everybody thinks: I need more leads. And you don't need more leads if you burn all the leads that come into your business. That's just the bottom line. So if you're not tracking what's going on when you put a new lead into the business and where there's problems and things like that, you're going to wake up and just think, well, just put more leads in. Just keep pouring more leads in. And I always think about like a bucket with holes in it, and that's your sales process. If you don't know where the holes are, if you don't know how many holes are in the bucket, you could literally be standing over the bucket, just pouring water in, and it's just coming out the bottom, as fast as you're putting it in. And so that's what's happening in a lot of businesses. It's so broken and full of holes that those things need patched, not more leads. Because the most expensive thing in your business besides labor is lead generation. It takes time, it takes effort. And a lot of times you will have labor that's working on this to bring this stuff in, and then they don't know what to do with it, or something bad is happening. I was talking to a client a couple of days ago, and we were going to start mapping out his sales process. And step one, we were talking about, and I said, this is your problems before step one. You guys don't understand what you sell. If I ask the question, what do you do? You're like, hey, do you have 3 hours for me to explain it? Like, no, I don't. And so like before we even get into the sales process, we need to figure out what you do and be able to communicate that in about 5 seconds, because that's part of your challenge. And then we got into the sales process, and they're like, well, we don't really know what we're doing. So step one, when you map out the sales process, and I know I've just kind of jumped into it here, so you stop me if you want to ask questions. But step one to mapping the sales process is literally mapping the sales process. So you get a whiteboard, piece of paper, whatever it is, and you just start writing the steps down. You just start writing them down. I usually go from left to right. Here are my steps. And just, okay, here's the first thing we do, then the next thing we do, and the next thing we do. And then once I've mapped out all of the steps, the first thing I look for is gaps. So where are the gaps here? Where are we dropping the ball? Maybe there's something I think we should be doing, or I thought we were doing as a company. I'm like, wow, we really go from step one to step 6. And there's all these things in between that we're not doing that we should be. We need to implement those steps. So that's usually the first eye-opening thing is, hey, we're dropping the ball in all these places. And then the next thing is, if you're looking at your steps, you want to see, where do most leads drop off? Do they drop off in step number 1, step number 3, step number 7? And if you identify that right out of the gate, you can say, okay, well, most people drop off in step number 6. Well, let's address that. Why are they dropping off in step number 6? Okay, we're not communicating this. We're not sending that, whatever it may be. And you can address that. And now you're getting more people through the funnel from step 6 to 7 and so forth. Once you do that, I always recommend you document it. And then you train the team in the process. And then the last step here is to monitor it somehow, like in a CRM. Let's get some actual data. And there are a number of CRMs that are free. I use HubSpot. I like that one a whole lot. But if you want a lot of other data points, people like Salesforce and Zoho, and, a plain old spreadsheet will work initially, just so that you can map out the process, figure out what's going on, and really fine tune it. And then you're always going to fine tune it, but as you fine tune it, keep training the team on it. Keep going back to the whiteboard. Are we doing something different? A lot of times what I'll do is I'll go to an organization and say, who's the best salesperson on the team? And they'll say Bob or Susan. You know what? Bob and Susan, they're like number 1 and 2, neck and neck. Okay, well, let's sit down with them with the sales process and look at it. And they'll say, yeah, step 3 through 7. Yeah, we don't do that at all. Here's what we actually do. And then you want to model their system and adopt it to your process. So there's a lot of really cool little tricks like that. But knowing what you're doing, documenting it, training the team on it, and then monitoring all these pieces will help you become so much better. And it doesn't cost a lot of money. It just costs a little bit of time. You can map out your sales process in 20 or 30 minutes. That's all it takes. And then you can start to refine it from there. So that's my 2 cents for today. So,
oh my gosh. Well, that is really important, because if people haven't sat down and thought about who they sell, why they sell it, who would buy it. And then the other part about it is you're developing a relationship with that customer, and who wants to be invited to somebody's, I don't know, dinner party, and then come in, and then as soon as you walk in the door, I ignore you. That's right. That's what you're really talking about, is find out why somebody walked through the door and how you can make them intrigued enough to get into a conversation. And you're right. So many people just say, oh, just got to get more leads, got to get more leads.
Right.
Tell us about, people don't realize how much, if this is a general business practice, but even though we're working in federal contracting, it's not different, is it?
No, it's not. And I like your dinner party analogy there, because what if, instead of ignoring them when they walk in the door, if they got the invitation to the party, they show up, you open the door and go, hey, nice to see you. There's a priest back there. Let's go ahead and get married. Like, that's what a lot of like sales process looks like. It's like step 1 and step 2. There's no other steps, but it's, hey, nice to meet you. You need to buy some stuff from me, which is like, hey, we just met. Let's get married. And like, that's just not a really good sales process. And so, yeah, I mean, I've seen some people hit the lottery with that, but a lot of them don't. Right. And so when you're looking at it, it is basic business. This isn't even specific to government. You're going to put leads into your business. You're going to work those leads. But then I see a lot of people that I consider spoil their leads, where they'll see an RFP, they can't respond to the RFP. So they're like, oh, well, let's just delete that one and go on to the next one. I'm like, hold up. Well, if you're not going to respond to that, Are you going to at least reach out to that customer and talk to them? Because that person buys what you sell. You need to develop a relationship with them. So you may not take a swing at this one, but what about the next three? And if one of my criteria for bidding is I need to know the customer and I don't know the customer, if you never talk to the customer, you're never going to know the customer. So if I see an opportunity that I can't bid on, I will often reach out to that person anyway. Hey, Jenny, I saw this RFP you just put out. I'm not going to respond to it because we just don't have the time, energy, resources, whatever. But clearly you buy what we sell. It's time to build a relationship with you and then start going down that rabbit hole. And what I found is sometimes, not all the time, sometimes when you do that, guess what happens? That person says, well, why aren't you going to respond? Even though you just said 3 reasons why you want. And they say, oh, hold up. I don't know that we've got anybody interested in this. So you may reconsider responding to this thing, and they may encourage you to do it. Or you may go down, again, another rabbit hole with them where they say, hey, I've got these other 2 projects. Yeah, those are probably more in line with you. But you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start building